Angie Tebbe is the co-founder of Rae Wellness, which is a cult favorite collection of affordable, evidence-based wellness products. And since its founding in September 2019, Rae as a brand has experienced triple-digit growth by building off a unique and successful launch strategy, as well as maintaining an attainable and affordable presence. Rae was sold exclusively online and quickly garnered a strong digital presence among consumers, which allowed them to expand their footprint with Target nationwide in January of 2020. So, without further ado, Angie Tebbe, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, yes, it's something we talked about before we jumped on, but I did mention my girlfriend personally is a huge fan of your products. She loves all the evidence-based supernatural wellness products.
So good.
Yes, and that being said, I know that there's currently a lot of there's this movement for people to be like hard workers, drive yourself down to the bone, and work really hard. And I feel like your brand and its values is trying to work against that by helping people understand about taking the time to rest. And the workplace culture can be a little toxic in that way, especially in tech and especially for women. How have you been able to mitigate that first by championing that cause in your own brand and in your own personal life?
Oh, that is a packed question. I think it's just so authentic. So, to who I am, to who we are as a brand. And so, tell you a little bit about how, my why and why we got here and why we started Ray. 2 years ago, I had everything that you were describing, an amazing corporate career. I loved my job. I had two little dudes at home, but I was decreasing on my own priority list. And, I wasn't taking care of my own well-being. And so I really had an opportunity to think about what wellness meant to me personally and professionally together, and how I could bring that together, not just for myself, but for others in my next chapter. So I grew up in a really holistic household. My mom was a nurse. My dad was into Reiki and homeopathy. And we were the weird family meditating on the lawn in Fargo, North Dakota in the 80s. And so, it comes from me wanting to honor what I know so well. And so I left my corporate career in pursuit of my own well-being. And as I sought to do that in a number of ways, supplements included. I believe that there's no amount of kale that can replace what we as women put out on a daily basis. And so I knew I believe in the power of supplementation. And so found a white space. Everything was either way too expensive, or as I walked mass retail aisles, it was a lot of gummies, which are chock full of sugar. And so I didn't see any brands that were speaking to me and what I needed as a woman. And so, as all stories go, when you create a company, I had an idea and was heads down kind of in pursuit of that.
And you founded this. You have a co-founder, correct?
I did. I
You
do.
did.
I have an amazing co-founder. He's no longer involved in the day-to-day of the
Okay.
company.
And was that like without getting too personal, obviously, was that a easy transition to then take on, because somebody had to take those responsibilities, right?
Yeah, Eric Carl, who's amazing, and we are such good friends. We kind of had this belief at the beginning that we would kind of figure it out on the way. Like, we were coming together with a common purpose, and we would figure it out along the way. And I think at the end of the day, he is on to bigger, broader pursuits in his own life. And so here we are.
Right. And so, as a CEO, not everyone who founds a company should be a CEO. Have you found that to be a very natural fit for your personality and its dynamics, or have you found challenges along the way and have considered maybe I should move into a more marketing based role?
Uh, Definitely not marketing. That would probably be the last role anybody would decide to place me in. But I got to tell you, building a company for the first 2 years is crazy, which is where I'm at. I'm like right at the 2 year mark. And when I started, I knew the first 2 years would be radical commitment. Everybody starting a company says that. So I was prepared for the wildest, fullest, most unforgiving but fulfilling kind of 2 years of my life. And that's exactly what it was. The commitment and tenacity you have to have to the mission is incredible. And that's as a founder, that's as a CEO. And I mean, here's an example, like after literally countless, and I mean countless of no's from investors, all of the initial heavy lifts, all the continual heavy lifts. Like, I don't think after 2 years you pop out of startup mode. Like, it is a continual process, and our aspirations are high. So you sometimes ask yourself, "Is this really going to happen?" But 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 at the end of the day, what's important as a leader of a new company or a brand that you are building quite literally from scratch, you have to love the process and you have to be motivated by the challenges, which means, so like, most importantly, you have to be so tethered and you cannot forget your why. And if you're so clear and tied to your why, that's your North Star. And on the bad days, that's your North Star. And on the really good days, that's your North Star. And so I do think that, it takes a different level of love of the process and commitment and tenacity, startup versus midpoint versus, the years to come that we're on this journey. But I think what I found is this to me has been all of those things, but quite frankly, a culmination of like how I grew up and honoring what I knew so well about holistic approach to well-being, all the way through to like everything I learned and I was schooled in my corporate career on. So for me, this is like a ride of a lifetime. This is not replicable. And yeah, so I think I'm in the perfect place.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think one of the best ways to go with that. I've heard you mention your why a lot, and it's funny. A lot of people have read the Simon Sinek book and the Start with Why, and I think that sometimes people read a book. I know myself, I'm very guilty of this, and I think I understand it, and then I don't operate from a position of values. But it seems like that's one of the cornerstones of what you're saying is responsible for a lot of your success so far. So maybe you can unpack a little for the listener specifically what chasing or working from your why means for you. Like, what is that exactly? Is there a process to that you've culminated?
Oh my gosh. And everything's a process. I don't claim to have it figured out, just to be clear.
Okay.
But for me, if it's almost like asking yourself, like, what are you put on this planet to do? And then what's tucked underneath that? And then what's tucked underneath that? If you really start to uncover like what is in your guts, like what are you put on this planet to do? And it could be anything for anybody. It could be to be an amazing father. It could be to be a killer snowboarder, right? Like, what were you put on this planet to do that you are inherently, like, what if from a cellular level, like what does your mind and body crave? Mine is to be a wellness lover and a student and a learner of business, like, and bringing those two things together for me was, and it took me a while to figure it out. I had 15 years of a corporate career, but once I had it, I didn't know how to go about it, to be clear. Like, I didn't know my what or when or how. But once I figured that out, there was no going back in terms of that. Like, this is what I'm going to do with the next chapter of my life.
Do you remember that moment? Was there an aha moment where you were in the corporate career and specifically you might have been walking through the aisle of a store and going, I should just start my own thing. Is Was there a moment like that for you?
I wish there was like this amazing like epiphany, but it happened. It happened over the course of a few months. It happened quickly, to be honest, but it happened over the course of a few months. And it happened, I remember driving home one night when I was like, why am I so tired? And what is it? I know I've got a lot going on, but something in my guts just didn't feel right. And so I started finally asking the questions, like, what is this thing? And I finally pulled the blinders up for one of the first times in my career. And I said, what's going on here? Now I can look back, and it was probably a little bit of burnout. It was probably a little bit of, mid 30s questioning life type of activity. But for the first time, when I like pulled those blinders off, the universe showed up for me in a matter of, weeks and months, where it was like the signs that came to me, the things that showed up in front of me. And I think I was ready to see them because I had finally pulled the blinders off. I mean, people I had been thinking about, physically running into them in the LaGuardia airport with my mom, like leading to an opportunity in wellness. Like, it just, when I was finally ready to like see the things that I think had maybe been presented in front of me for a while, I had the confirmation I needed. And then in my guts, I knew this was it. Again, I didn't know how. Like, I left my career without knowing what I was going to do, to be clear. Like,
Wow.
I didn't leave and then like have this planned. I left knowing my why, but then it took me months to kind of figure out the what. A supplements company, like I didn't leave in pursuit of that. It was more at the highest level.
And so I'm sure there might be a listener who tunes in and they're like, okay, I have a corporate career, but how would I possibly even make that change? Looking back, what would you say are some things you probably could have done to make the transition easier? Because judging from what you said, it was a roller coaster ride. But looking back, I'm sure you could see how maybe it would have been done a little easier. Is that a truth?
Um, I have to be, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I can give my own personal experience. And of course, looking back, there's always, should have thought of that, could have thought that through, wish I would have done that. But I think the journey is just so different for everybody.
Hmm.
For me, it needed to be all in, right? Like some people are, in corporate careers and can figure out their next one simultaneously. I knew I couldn't do that. I needed to like clear my mind and be all in. So that was my experience, but I think it's so different for everybody. And to be clear, finding your why doesn't mean you leave your corporate career. Sometimes it can be like, I need a different hobby, right? Or I need like a little bit of a lift in different areas of my life. And so for me, this is my story, but full recognition and empathy that it's so different for every case.
So you finally found what it is you wanted to do, not just your why. You've got this idea for a supplement company. Did you design the business plan yourself, or how did you go about building your team?
Um, yes. So, what we had some fundamental principles when we started. One was we, our mission is, one, we stand for well-being for all. Two, we want to be a company that fuels all people to shine from inside, right? It's the insides that matter, not the outsides. And it's more about how you feel than how things manifest. And so for us, we had this concept like, let's create the supplement line that has pure, powerful, attainable, really well designed. And so we had this concept of like, let's make this brand that makes the most basic things super cool. So what does that mean? It meant to us, one, we believe wellness doesn't have to be hard or complicated, and it shouldn't be a full-time job, right? And so that means, drink an extra glass of water. That doesn't mean you have to have like approximately 64 ounces. It just means like do a little bit more or a little bit better for yourself in pursuit of yourself. So second, wellness doesn't have to be expensive. We set up our product universe so you can take Rae now, you can take Rae as part of your long-term impact to your well-being as part of your overall well-being. And in order to enable that, we knew scale had to be part of the equation to make it affordable, right? And so we were kind of heads down in pursuit of that business model. And third, this one is like so heartfelt. We believe wellness not even should be for everyone, needs to be for everyone. Our community is so diverse, and we, from day one reflected that in our diverse products, diverse marketing. The thing that I was always trying to fight against is like, you see so many white women holding really expensive products. Like, we wanted to be the antithesis of that, right? And so with kind of that fundamental mission and those high level principles, we kind of sought out to build that, which if you're going to be for everybody, you got to have scale. And so, we started small, we started in direct to consumer. We're noticed really, really quickly by a big retailer called Target. And so we're really kind of thrilled. We were always had that in the back of our minds that we're in pursuit of something big. And we still are. Our job is just beginning. So yeah, it was all a build. In hiring the team, um, it was it was being honest enough, or honest with ourselves to say, what are the things we were terrible at, and what are the things we know nothing about. And then those kind of became our first hires, and then we started to build a team around that.
And do you encourage some of the same values that your brand espouses? Do you encourage that in the workplace culture, whether it's remote or on location? Do you check in? Do you have like rituals or some kind of daily practice with your team that really isn't aligned with that culture wise?
Um, yeah, so culture-wise, we emulate all of those things. Like you can't have, I believe, you can't have a different culture than you manifest externally.
Mm.
What happens internally is what gets manifested externally. And so everything that you see of our brand, the transparency, the earnest realness with how we communicate internally, like we don't have time to not say what we mean, right? Like there's a business to build here. How we are truly advocating and standing and walking in solidarity with our community, that's what we do for each other. We're advocates for each other internally. And so you can't have one brand strategy and you can't have a different culture. Like those two things have to be built so simultaneously, otherwise it's not authentic.
Interesting. So, do you have the type of culture place where your team, who may not necessarily be a part of marketing but has an idea, is that invited? Do you invite that kind of discussion and conversation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Vulnerability. I would say the best thing that we are doing, and it's this early in the journey, is like the level of vulnerability you need to be able to have with one another, especially right now. I mean, we launched like a little over a year ago. We don't know what normal is. Like we basically been in this COVID quarantine longer as a company than we haven't, right? And so how do you build a culture? And we've tripled our team this year, right? From
Wow.
January till now. And so like, how do you build this culture when you haven't met a lot of these people in person? It's like the vulnerability, not only to one another through everything to take care of each other's well-being, but additionally to do the right things for the company. Like if I'm not raising my hand and being honest about like, I have no idea what you just said, or I'm really terrible at that. Can somebody help me and like raise your hand? Like that is how we have to operate. Otherwise the community will feel that and the business will start to feel that.
There's such a holistic feel to everything that you do. Like what I mean is like from A to Z, you really do embody, or you make your efforts to embody that very thing that you're putting out into the world. So I can see how you constantly going back to the idea of what is my why and knowing that and how you anchor yourself in that. It really shows. If no one has ever told you, it really shows. And uh, I imagine your team is very happy. And through all this growth, I'm sure you guys have come across challenges that didn't exist prior when the company was smaller. Is there any particular challenge you dealt with that you didn't expect to deal with now that you're growing and you are finally reaching that place of affordability for your people, your clients, your customers? Is there anything that as a company you've faced that now you've overcome, but you were like, wow, did not see that one coming? How about
um,
everything?
I mean, anybody who tells you no, it's all good is lying. First of all, it's been such a wild. So like I said, I'm about the 2 year mark, and we're a little over a year from actually launching the brand. Yeah, I mean, all the time, every day, all, every hour. But I think when you and I'm happy to get specific, but I just think there's so many. When you though build a culture of transparency, vulnerability, and quite frankly, everybody's tied to that mission and the why. You don't see those things as roadblocks, right? Like I don't like the word mistake or roadblock. Like, and I know that sounds corny, but like we even have these conversations internally. I'm like, those are redirects. Like everything's a redirect. If
Mm.
our community says, and it's our job, like we're not building this brand for us, we're building this brand for a consumer and our broader, diverse community. And so if we're hearing something that's contrary to what we thought, that's just a redirect. Like we owe it to the community to listen to those things. And so, yes, every day, all the time, we've had some bigger things, we've had some smaller things. But what I'm thrilled about is for the first time, I feel like, and maybe it's not the first time, maybe it's my perception of the first time, women are really understanding how important it is to take care of their well-being. Now, you could say it's a movement around women. You could say it's COVID. You could say it's quarantine and broader health concerns. Like, I don't know it's probably a combination of a lot of cultural and consumer influences, but what is so cool at the end of the day, through all of this, through this entire crazy year we've all had, is women are finally seemingly taking time to take care of themselves, mind and body. It's not just about the body, it's not just about beauty, it is about the tie of mind and body. Like digestion affects mental clarity, stress affects your ability to sleep, which replenishes the body. Like it's all just so intertwined. And I feel like it's the beginning of this beautiful movement where women finally just say it's time.
Hmm. So, if there was anything you could say to, let's say, your younger self, being where you are now, and like you said, you're just getting started, but even now, if you could speak to your younger self who may be struggling, doesn't even know. I mean, even though you're a popular, massive brand now, there may be people who still don't know. And let's say they're struggling with wellness and they don't feel good. Frankly, I know many women in my own personal life who don't even see that. They're mothers and they have kids and they're constantly like, whatever, I do it for my kids. But then their relationship starts to suffer because they don't feel well. So all they want to do is sleep. And, that affects their relationship with their partner, their mood around their kids, things of that nature. I really think what you're doing is powerful. So if there was anything you could say to them, whether it's with your products or just as a founder of that and who espouses his beliefs, what would it be?
So deep. Um, all
Because
of the things, all
you've
of the
been there
things.
yourself, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you
Oh yeah. All of the things you just said, but I think most importantly, the thing that I have learned through my entire journey through life is trust yourself and trust your gut, right? And gut is a blend of like mind and body and emotions and all of the things together, because I feel like that is where so much lies, and we have such keen instincts based on the intuition we have as women, the data we get as women. Data could be like my relationship is suffering, right? Like that's data. And we just need to listen. And I got to tell you, every single time in this journey, in my entire life, every time I haven't listened, I've taken the longer road back to where I should have been if I listened in the first place.
that's deep. That's deep. So true. Never go against yourself.
You know, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no. Are there any books that you recommend offhand? Any books that you're currently reading or one you give away?
Um,
Are you a reader? Is that one of your practices, or are you
oh,
so busy that you?
here's the thing. The best books for me, it's so funny. The best books for me are books that can like give synopses. I don't know if that's a word. Can really translate key messages from other books. So there's a lot of books that do that, right? They're like, "Hey, by the way, if you were to read this entire 300-page book, here's like the 4-page version of like what you missed." I
Right.
love that, because what I find is like I'm reading like 5 books right now, but I can't manage to like finish like start to back, like front to back any one of them. That takes me a long time just because my time is so
Sure.
fragmented. Um, so those books, generally speaking, but yeah, I mean, I love Simon. You mentioned Simon. I live by Simon. That is my mindset, and so anything to encourage again who you already are is helpful. And yeah, there's a whole host of books, but most recently it's been centered around team culture and hires.
Really? So you do a lot of self education to help inform the things you do in business. Like that's a belief of yours. You're like, you know what? I've got to read on this,
Yeah,
whether it's articles or whatever it may be.
I think I I owe it to the company, the team. Like, if I am not pushing myself And that can take form of reading books. That can take form of, like, I seek out mentors. Like, I just call people and I'm like, hey, you're super cool. You want to be my coach? Like, and if and that could be for a short period, right? Like, this 6 months could be this level of mentorship or coaching. It's like, well, I feel like maybe our time here is done, and then you move on to the next. Or that could be long lasting over 3 years, but I'm constantly seeking. Like, I always say, like, if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. If I'm not growing, I'm not happy. And so that's who I am. But I also feel this tremendous responsibility for our community to just make sure I'm pushing myself with the latest research and everything happening in women's well-being too.
Awesome. If there was anybody you could meet, does anyone come to mind? Like anybody at all? You never know who's listening.
I There's so many people that I respect so deeply. Um, but I got to tell you, the one that I can't stop thinking about lately is Oprah. The way the way she thinks, how connected she is, how clear she is on her why, how holistic all of her thoughts are, and how, quite frankly, how she helps the world, and specifically girls. Like, I failed to mention, this is one of our most important missions, is we have a tremendously deep partnership with Girls Inc. And so we give 5% of our revenue every single day to Girls Inc. And they support the next generation of women and their well-being. Like, you think about the stress that women go through, it's the same stuff girls go through, right? Like, it's just different and at different levels. The sleep deprivation, different and different levels. And so our mission is to help support the next generation and fuel the next generation of women through that partnership. And I feel like she embodies so much of that. I would love to spend even 5 minutes with her and pick her brain.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to meet Oprah myself. That's
You know
amazing.
her, you know her.
If I ever get a chance to meet her, I'll connect you two. I
Great,
promise. Hold
great.
hold my foot to the fire. Oh wow. Okay, Angie, it's been an absolute pleasure. We do have to keep it short, and I honestly I could feel like this could go on for another 30 minutes, and it's we still wouldn't be at the end of it all because you're such a self development, consistently learning and growing type of person. I myself really resonate with that. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't thank you enough for championing a cause that needed to be championed and making it affordable. Your product is amazing. Like I told you, people that I know use it. And I look forward to the next time we get a chance to talk.
Thank you. It's been amazing. This has been so fun.
Thanks. Okay. I'll talk to you later.